dress up as a jiu-jitsu guy every Halloween. I just wear a gi.
Oh, wow.
I go as Captain Kirk.
I know.
I go as Captain Kirk.
Oh, that's good.
Either my alternate universe Kirk, where all the mustard color is black and all the black is mustard. I kind of like the universe Kirk.
Oh, nice.
Or I do the standard classic.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
It's a good call. All right. Today, we are here back for another pod. We had a sick last one. We had John Jock. That was good.
Yeah, it was a good pun.
That was interesting. It's cool to meet him. Legend.
Yep. It's always interesting because, like, even though you know a person, there's always things that you didn't know that you find more out about. And of course, a lot of our listeners out there want to hear more about the history of jiu-jitsu, and everybody has their own little perspective. And with John Jacks was like in the core of it, what I call the golden age of jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
Which is the classic age, which is when Helio and Carlos were young, when Maeda was still alive. That's like the golden age. And then the American age is the like silver age, when it exploded in the US, right? When it came of age.
Yeah, I felt like his perspective super interesting given his trajectory. Some of the stuff that he was talking about, and like that he was born into the Gracie family, but not completely, because he was like 1 degree away as a cousin. So it was like an interesting, the things that happened in his story and how that all unfolded for him. Interesting.
It's an interesting subculture of a culture that is very much a patriarchal honor culture. Mm-hmm. And most of us males certainly have our alpha drive and our misogyny and all that, but we also have a beta drive, a collective drive that, especially in those cultures, is often repressed or denied. But that's what psychologists and sociologists believe creates hierarchy, is most of it is below consciousness. It's like, I can't help but yield to the hierarchy. It's almost an instinct. You know what I mean? I
mean, I was feeling that at the John Jock episode. He rolled in and I had this whole show planned, and then he sits down and I'm like,
he's now in charge.
Like, yeah, I guess whatever you want to do, sir.
Yep. And that's kind of how it goes.
Funny. All right. But today we don't have a guest. So we're joined by the CEO, the femme fatale, the business black belt, Melissa Haueter.
Yay.
We're here with the venerable, the OG, Chris Haueter.
Old grappler Chris Haueter.
John behind the lens, as always. Yay!
Yay, John.
The man who makes it happen.
And Tobin, the producer here, just flapping my freaking jaw, my flapper.
So what is our
Wearing
episode?
your khaki pants.
Wearing my khakis. And so today we're going to talk about uniforms, gis, kimonos, wrestling pajamas. Are they just a weird costume, or is this
the attire in which we wear in these combat sports?
Is it a utilitarian item or a joke?
Or is it both?
Or both.
Yep.
So we're going to go over that. But first, we have been having a blast doing this podcast, people.
Certainly.
We want to keep doing this podcast.
Yes, we do.
But it takes a lot of time and energy, and we can't do it without your support. And we need some funds of some sort. So we set up a couple ways that you can start to support our show to keep it going if you'd like. We got a Patreon, Combat Base Podcast Patreon. There'll be a link in the show notes, and you can click that and you can subscribe monthly to support our show. And in the future, as we get going, there'll be some exclusive perks and some benefits to that subscription beyond just helping us keep going. So look out for that if you like. You also can be a YouTube super. So at the bottom of your YouTube screen, there's an option to be a super, and you can pledge some support for our show that way. If you want to take advantage of being a Combat Base Club member, What do we got?
Combat Base Club member, you use the code combat or podcast.
Podcast.
The code podcast gets you the first month free of Combat Base Club membership. So you could technically just try it out for a month and then cancel. You could get 1 month free Combat Base Club membership. Look at our videos, check out our Zoom class question and answer session where you can send in a question and Chris will answer it. It gets emailed out to you every month. Or, maybe you want to be a lifetime subscriber and constantly be, in contact and part of our Combat Base Club, open to everyone.
And the club is awesome. Yes. And, I've found a show that I really want to watch and I'll subscribe to like Paramount Plus or whatever it is for a month. Hopefully my ADHD remembers to unsubscribe afterwards, right? But most things have free intros and it's good to intro, and Combat Base definitely does have a wealth of support for you jiu-jitsu peeps out there who feel maybe like you're Ronin a little bit or on your own a little bit, or you feel like you have a good group but you're a solo tribe, and we let you be who you want to be.
Yeah, and the other one is Podcast 10, which gives you 10% off of merchandise. So if you just want to come in and buy some merchandise, combatbase.com, where we have art, we have shirts, we have beanies, hats,
Coming soon,
guards.
soap.
Oh, Chris made soap. He's really proud of it.
Coming
Combat Base
soon.
soap.
Yep.
We also have hoodies coming in soon. Some really stellar hoodies that say Think Street Train Sport Practice Art. Those should be here this week. We'll be having those up on the website. Nice. And you can get 10% off of all that merch with Podcast 10. But here's another thing. You could join the Combat Base Club with the podcast, and you also get 10% off if you use that. So you would get access to the video library and everything. Plus, you could get 10% off your hoodie.
Nice. Buy a hoodie and then quit the club.
Right. You get your hoodie and split and watch all the videos within a month's time.
There you go.
And as Tobin mentioned, a Patreon is actually a pretty good business, pretty ethical operation they run.
And we really appreciate your support. I appreciate each and every person who's reached out to me and told me that they're enjoying the podcast. And I'm so glad that people are enjoying it. We want to keep doing this. And so, we appreciate any support that you can.
Yeah. Just watching the show really helps, like more than anything. So, gotta
subscribe.
Gotta subscribe and comment as much as you want. Okay.
And last point, if you're anything like me, I often scrub ahead to get into the meat of the show, and I hear most things on 1.25 or 1.5 speed, because sometimes when I hear slow talking, I'm like, fuck!
And sometimes when I hear fast talking, I'm like, that again? Like,
find it in the middle.
Turn the noise down.
We're
opposites.
Noise comforts me, noise doesn't comfort her, so we're opposites.
I like music.
Nice. Well, let's get into our show. All right.
Okay, let's do this.
Enough of that. Okay, so gis, kimonos, uniforms. What exactly is this thing? So we got this jacket and pants. What is it?
I'm ready to jump in right off the bat.
Okay.
One of the first little peeves I have that bugged me when it arose, what was it, like 10 years ago, where every gi came in the tote bags with those stupid spaghetti straps that cut into your shoulders.
Don't talk bad about
They're
this.
worthless they are worthless as a backpack. I think they're really cool promotional things to put a water bottle in your hoodie, but
we have some at combatbase.com.
We do. Magic Kimono had them because everybody else did. I jumped on the bandwagon and said, okay. There was this period of time 15 years ago where I almost bought 65 vintage Alice packs because I was going to have Magic Kimono sewn on those. So you have a real
What's an
backpack.
Alice pack, Chris?
It's a military issue backpack that began in late 60s and the last ones were issued sometime shortly after 9/11. It's one of America's longest running rucksacks.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but anyhow.
But you don't like purses or fanny packs, and some people like Tobin.
I get
He
it.
enjoys a fanny pack.
Yeah.
I get it. I
So
know
some
everybody
people
loves them.
enjoy the little bags.
The little spaghetti straps
Some
that cut
people
into your
enjoy that,
shoulders and
Chris.
barely fit anything in it. Yeah, I
Okay.
get it.
But as far as what an actual gi is, though, why do we train in a gi and why do we wear sweatpants and sweatshirt or street clothes or like military fatigues? Like, what is the purpose of the gi exactly?
Well, I think the reason why most people train in a gi, including me at first, is because that's what the hierarchy put on you. And just like we were talking earlier, and maybe it was off show, the hierarchical things are strong in groups. And as much as we have a drive to be an individual and stand out, we have a drive to fit in. And that fit in drive, you don't want to be the one guy who's out of uniform. And so uniformity is a very common thing, in spite of whether it has a practical reason or not. And sometimes we rationalize the practical reason post facto after, because really what we're supporting is the hierarchy. And there was times in the early days where there was a lot of rebels against that hierarchy. And the no-gi guys, part of it was they're rebelling against that. And I'm convinced that part of it was when you have tough, macho wrestlers, you don't want to wear a fucking white belt.
But wait, don't we have to kind of go back if we're going to approach this topic?
We got to approach the whole
gotta
thing
go back
to the 1600s.
Well, yeah, because this came from Japanese jiu-jitsu.
That is correct.
That wore gis.
Yes.
So why, and that's why we wear gis,
Yes.
because we never took them off.
It's
right?
conformity.
Well, okay. But I'd say like from the practical side, my thought is that we've decided to do this grappling practice. If I came in street clothes, they'd get all torn up.
Yep.
The weight of a t-shirt is such it'd be easy to get my fingers caught in.
Yep.
There's pockets in my khaki chinos.
Metal snaps and zippers.
And all these things would cause a lot of injury. And so the gi doesn't have any pockets, doesn't have metal snaps and stuff, so we can get through a training without having severe lacerations all over our body, without having our fingers caught in pockets and ripped off. And then the lapel is like a rope. It's like a sturdy material,
Yep.
so I can have one unit and use it for a long period of time. And it's sturdy around the cuffs. All the places that you would grab somebody, it's got sturdy material. So it has a really practical design that makes it look like a really utilitarian item to me.
And because people wear clothing, this ancient gi, and because of its construction for the purposes of grappling, has survived in a cultural evolution because of its practicality.
So it has a practical application.
Absolutely practical.
Yeah.
Absolutely practical.
By
if you're
design,
going to use
yeah.
cloth grips, right? So obviously when people go into no-gi, then it's like only grabbing,
Well, that was
you don't grab your board shorts. You don't grab your rash guard. You're not supposed to.
Which is why, let me say one thing. I've been saying for 20 years, and I think it's absolutely true, there was briefly an argument back in the olden days that no-gi was more applicable to street because people don't wear gis in the street, but people mostly wear clothing. And in the wintertime, they wear jackets. And a jacket is more similar to a gi top than a rash guard is. And so no-gi is actually more sport-oriented, I think, than gi jiu-jitsu is.
Unless you fight at the beach.
Unless you fight at the beach.
Or the bathhouse.
Or the bathhouse. And even MMA is a sport with certain rules that is more applicable to no-gi.
Yeah, I remember thinking this when I very first started jiu-jitsu and asking my instructor, like, isn't gi not, isn't it more close to real fighting to be in no-gi? And his answer was, well, think about it. If we approached each other in a street fight, would we stop and take all of our clothes off first? And I was like, oh, I guess not.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
and it's very common that when two men engage in a duel, that they quickly remove their jackets if
shirt
they
off
can.
or the shirt off and then
And yes, and they're removing that because they know it's a grabbable item that they
Yeah.
could be controlled with.
Yeah.
And hoodies with no zipper are probably one of the worst things you could wear in a brawl. You could just reach over, grab that hoodie, loop choke, pull
Our new
the sleeve
hoodies have
through.
a zipper, by the way.
well, and then
My
the,
hoodies, I want a
easy
zipper. Yep.
disrobing, just in case.
I don't like pullovers. It's just a thing. I feel claustrophobic in them, especially if they're tight and in that stupid skinny jean phase that we're finally out of. I don't like tight clothing in any way. Ugh.
so that yeah. Yeah, and that takes me back to like, so that's the reason why we don't train in street clothes, right?
Yes.
If you came in a sweatshirt, it would get you all wrapped up. You could potentially get the strings wrapped
Yep.
around your neck, and you could.
And you're
it'd be
choked out, and
injurious,
then
right?
they have to untie the knot to get air back in your brain.
Yeah. So it almost seems like, yeah, a really well designed item for the activity that we do, and
Yes.
not so much a costume. The other thing that comes into play, though, is now we have a uniform. And what are the implications of a uniform on a group?
Well, let's go back to, all right, so how many Super Bowls was it ago, the inflate gate, where the ball was either overly pumped or under pumped? Because in the sport, in all sports, but in the combat sports, everything really matters. Like your weight down to the ounce. Whether you lost that weight efficiently or lost energy losing that weight. And the uniform back in the early days was an unregulated item. And there are some people that wore really thick gis and some people that wanted this to speed and have a thinner gi. And once they implemented standards, I think as a result, we have a better product now than how it was when I was coming up. Before IBJJF instituted standards.
Weren't people doing things like putting metal in their
Yes.
collars?
So
That's what I heard.
in the I want to say it was the 96 Pans in Hawaii. There's a black belt match happening. Two prominent Brazilian guys. I can't remember their names because I'm horrible at names. And at one point, one guy's complaining about something. It's all in Portuguese. I remember Hickson came onto the mat and everyone else. A guy had sewn into his lapel a steel cable, making a choke-proof collar.
Crazy.
And the Howard combat kimonos, the Absolute, were these things that there was this period of time for about a year where everybody was wearing thick lapels, like judo thick lapels, and the art of the lapel chokes was dying.
Which is very not easy to do.
Right.
To be really good at chokes, like people could know how to put them on, but to actually finish them,
Yeah, it's hard.
this is a
Yes.
very finesse thing.
And that thick lapel eliminates a lot of chokes. And so there was a period in time, I'm going to grab one. So when I was brand new in this is the kind of gi that you would buy from Horian Gracie.
Super
was
short
this.
sleeves.
Super short sleeves, baggy. You could use this to choke.
But you can't do like a straight collar choke.
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
you can. They're thin though too, like really
The
almost like
thinner
karate.
the collar,
gis.
the more chokes you will get. A t-shirt has more options of choking than just a gi. The thick lapels eliminate a lot of chokes, which is why judo has far less chokes because of the gi. And there was no spider guard, because how do you spider guard this? Because it's easy to break.
Right.
But when the sleeve is here, now it's wrist control. And the jiu-jitsu gi evolved to adapt to the way the hierarchy wanted to retain the art. and retain the art in the sport. And there is that period of time where I always joke people were wearing like tight gis all the time, like an Armani suit, and you can't grab the knee right here because it's so tight. Like, to me, that's cheating. I call them cheating gis when they're super
But it's also
duper
not
tight.
as comfortable because it can
But then you
restrict
can't
your
move
hip
as much.
mobility.
Yep.
Yeah.
So now, of course, everyone knows who competes. There's ways of measuring how much space is in between the wrists, holding your arms out, if it's long enough, and all that. Probably the pants are the least checked item. So, but guys who have really thick legs and wear pants that are kind of tight, you're not going to be grabbing on knees. You're not going to be having that good grip down here. And that's just kind of how the game goes.
So once you get these uniforms going, though, I guess I'm not totally clear on like what the function of uniformity in a group is. So like you see uniforms in military,
Yep.
you see uniforms in political movements, right? Like a MAGA hat is a uniform, right? Everyone's showing that they're part of a group by
Yep.
wearing the uniform.
Or a rainbow shirt.
That's a
Indicating,
uniform.
and that's what's called unit cohesion. So it's very important in battle to have unit morale and unit cohesion. But it's also important to have a guerrilla operation is more chaotic, and chaos is as hard to defeat as uniformity of purpose. And so again, we're into the binaries of it. And society, this is a conservative argument, functions well with a certain amount of uniformity, right? Like it's public schools in England and Australia, they still wear uniforms because it reduces the amount of individual expression, which can cause disruption and challenge the hierarchy.
I was going to comment on that as well because I went to Catholic school. In Catholic school, we always had a uniform. And I don't know what that does to, like, there's a lot of rules. There's a lot more rules. Like your skirt has to be, like if your skirt was too short, you got detention. You know, like if your shirt wasn't tucked in and you didn't have a belt on, if you were wearing pants, you would get detention. So
do you say attention or detention?
Detention.
And attention.
And attention, yeah.
You get attention from the teachers and you get detention, but I don't know if it's a form of discipline. So like a lot of people think I'm going to put my kid in martial arts because they're going to learn discipline. And I always feel like that's not necessarily my experience of the way that we do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, me either. Yeah.
But I see that some martial arts with their uniforms and everybody matching and the bowing and the,
lining up, and
lining
the whole
up,
thing,
all
yep.
the things that they do to have some kind of discipline, for the children.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's interesting.
And it's both good and bad.
But then I'm also thinking in my head right now, it just popped in, like Andy plays soccer, our son. So the soccer team, they wear the same uniform, and through their uniform, they know who's on that team, and they have their team bonding.
And in war, it's important. Otherwise, you shoot your own guys.
Yeah.
Or they might want to buy the uniform of the team that they like, because then, or Andy loves wearing soccer shirts every day because he's all about soccer. So that's like his little uniform and his shorts.
Yep.
Yeah, my kids are pretty young still. They went to like a private preschool where they had to wear a uniform.
Oh.
They hated it.
Oh.
Even as little kids, they hated it. And when they got a chance to
They
wear
wanted
whatever they want, they wanted to express themselves. They wanted to
Yep.
do crazy socks. They wanted to wear hats. They were asking to wear their clothes backwards a couple times. And I said, sure, go for it. I don't care. And
It's
it
those
seems like they
dueling drives.
really, really want
You
to.
want to fit in, but at the same time, you want to be independent.
Yep, they want to express themselves. And then now they're at the public school and all the other kids. So at the gas station, there's these sunglasses. They're kind of like masks almost. They're called Rad Rippers. And all the kids have Rad Rippers. And so they wanted to go get some Rad Rippers. So they, at the same time, want to express themselves freely. They also want to be a part of the group, like you're saying.
Yep.
And all have the same shades as everybody else. So I guess like the one thing I'm thinking, like the colloquial criticism of gis and uniform policies is that people feel like they're being taken advantage of in some way. Like the school is making them buy the uniform
They feel controlled.
to make money.
Yes.
And that it's lame that they're being controlled.
Or branding as well. Like if
Yep.
you have to buy the uniform at your school that has your school's logo on it, that's
Yeah.
branding.
Yeah.
Yep.
And creating and you know,
But
as a business owner,
yeah.
it can be a really good thing because
Yep.
you're creating this look and this feel around your brand.
And it's a team. And you're building a team, and you're building the brand that represents the team. And even though it's a one-on-one sport, we value our team. We like being part of a team. We all do. And there's an attractiveness to that. Then the sick end of that is where it becomes occultish, where you have to match and what the leader says you do, and you're bowing to the person, not the art. And that's like there's like everything, there's a positive and a negative side to all of it. And sometimes people get swept up in the cultishness that has always been with martial arts.
Well, and it's a one-on-one sport, but you cannot do this alone.
Yep.
You cannot learn this alone, cannot practice this alone.
Yep.
So we need other people. So I think it ultimately leads back to like the question of, are you joining a group that's aligned with things that you believe in? And sometimes that is needing to be in a group that wears the same uniform, and sometimes that's being able to go to a place where you can wear whatever kind of gi you want and have that freedom of expression, and everything in between.
And we will adapt to whatever group we're in spite of your resolve that, no, my will is so strong, I won't change. If you're in that group long enough, in order to function in that group, you're going to adapt. So I always say when I teach and people say, do you want us to line up, coach? How do you? I always say, however you do it is how I'm going to do it, because it's their school and I'm there as a guest. And when I do my training, I run it the way I want. And you can get a sense that each place kind of has its own little feel. You also know when it's directed from way higher up. And usually those places won't have me in because they're directed from way higher up to not have me in. It's not uncommon that I'll teach a seminar, and when it's time to take pictures, there's a couple guys that don't want to be in the group shot.
Yeah, they're not allowed.
Because they're not allowed to attend outside instruction.
Which to me is mind-boggling.
They're paying to
But it's
not
okay
be allowed
if that's
to
what you
attend.
need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, people have visited the garage here and not been allowed to be in the group photo at the end, or don't want their instructor knowing that they came to roll with us. It's fine.
Yeah. It's interesting.
To each his own, Tobin.
To each his own. Now, as a former high school wrestler, I remember we would go almost once a week and train with our high school, would train with our rival high school, a practice.
Which is what, Redondo?
Aviation Costa.
Oh, Aviation Costa.
And in the wrestling world, it was far more normal because wrestling was definitely just a sport, not a duel. And in the martial arts world, is far more tribal, whether it's the classical Asian arts, jiu-jitsu, whatever. It's no, don't train with the other schools. Don't let them see your moves before you compete. And I distinctly remember that extreme contrast, how wrestling was welcoming and more open mat feel, whereas jiu-jitsu in the olden days was more closed mat, closed team, even to a point where there would be training that was reserved for the most loyal. And that's kind of how it was.
Yeah, I see that a little bit still sometimes.
There's a little bit of that still. And maybe that's good, right?
But then I think So if we're talking about gis, and some of the schools that are uniform, they believe that it's like more traditional to have a white gi and
Yes.
everybody in a white gi. But then I hear these stories from you guys about back in the day when it was hard to come across gis. So you just wear whatever you could get your hands on.
Mismatched
So
top
it'd be
and bottoms
mismatched,
all
all
the time.
crazy, all the time, right?
It was not.
Right.
So the tradition of the thing kind of,
In the first
America.
couple of years, what I'm going to call pre-UFC, gis were really hard to come by. A Brazilian jiu-jitsu gi. Judo gis, these the KI gis, were what we would have. And the top would last longer than the pants. So you'd end up having 5 tops and 1 pair of pants because the pants would get ripped in the passing game. And I remember being a purple belt, and these Brazilian guys came over. They were sleeping on the mat in sleeping bags. We came in to train. They're jet lagged, of course. One of the guys brought this big duffel bag out. He dumps it, and it was Krugen's gis. And it was like a shark frenzy, like, and I got one.
Nice.
And I was so excited that I finally had a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gi, not a judo gi and a thin pair of pants that's been sewn and repaired 9 times, right? And that was before Pakistan was making gis, and there's a whole pipeline of how it evolved and how the world globalized. There's a reason why Pakistan makes most of the gis, and it really comes down to Pakistan has nukes. And that's why they make our soccer balls, our boxing gloves. That's why you can order it, and it'll show up in a month on your doorstep rather than going through tariffs and customs. Because if they're not making gis, soccer balls, boxing gloves, they're making fucking bomb vests and going radical Islam and swapping nukes with India. So we have to have a good trade, an open policy with them so they can create and participate in the global economy. Yeah. So it's really easy to get things out of Pakistan. Whereas China was that same thing because of our trade reasons with China. And I found this all out while I was trying to make an American-made gi and realizing how fucking hard it was to make a gi in America. And about the first month I'm in on it, I'm literally downtown LA, the old garment areas, talking to old garmento guys, old Italian guys and Jews who've been in the rag industry for years, hearing all the stories of when it all changed, like after NAFTA, how Chinese companies would come, buy a building and put a lock on the door to stop Americans from making clothing.
Whoa.
They did it in Mexico too, at the maquiladoras. So an economic war has been happening for a long time. And
that's sorry to cut you off.
No.
That's a crazy concept that I never thought about, that like people from another country coming in and buying real estate, and then like they can afford to just own it, and then they just own it and don't let anything flourish there.
And so much of it is done through shell companies, through Western shell companies, including money laundering. So whether it's Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, the real estate holding company, or Putin and the drug cartel are ultimately running their money through the same banks.
Yeah.
And that's where it leads people into conspiracies of the banking industry. And it's not a conspiracy. What it is lawyers protecting assets. Mm-hmm. And once that money is money, they don't care whether it came from illicit ways or licit means, but that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, little did we know that
this is what we're going to do again.
China and Pakistan and all this stuff is affecting our uniforms.
So, yes, as pro-American as you want to be, having that American-made gi, know that if that Pakistan place isn't making gis, what are they going to make instead?
Yeah.
And that comes down to a lot of ethical arguments and global arguments. Of course, if your job is to sew jeans, you're pissed off that it's going away. Now it's interesting because a lot of the cotton is grown in America, then shipped to China and milled. But Pakistan and India grow a lot of cotton. And gi-wise, Pakistani cotton is a better cotton quality than the Chinese.
Or American cotton? Is that
Americans,
what you're saying?
high quality cotton. But
But you're saying we ship our cotton to China.
yes,
So they can make shit.
because they don't grow enough cotton. But Pakistan and India do, and we might want to look that up because I'm not exactly sure, because this
Always
is
fact check him.
knowledge I learned like 10, 15 years ago. But generally speaking, the Pakistani-made gi is going to have better quality cotton, whereas the Chinese gi has better quality stitching, better quality embroidery, better quality control. Whereas the Pakistan gi will be softer, higher quality cotton, but it might be an untrained 9-year-old making the gi rather than in China a 13-year-old slave making the gi. So you might be stopping World War III, but you're participating in child labor as well. So just like everything has positive and then negative, right? It all does.
You wanted to make an American-made
Yes.
gi.
In 2011, I got
in
obsessed.
2011, and you reached out to Origin at the time, and they didn't want to do it.
Well, here's how it went. So I'm downtown LA.
Call them out.
I'm downtown LA, literally walking, because the garment world isn't a world that's online. At least, but back then. It was, you got to get somebody's number. Here's where you go. It's on the 9th floor of the building in LA. I go up there. I knock on a door. I open it, and there's a room full of machines and people making jeans, which is how I ran into Mike D, who was, he did no-gi and MMA at the time and then got out of it, but was in the rag industry, which is the clothing industry. And I'm getting this rapid education in the clothing industry. I'm watching YouTube. I'm learning terminology, warp and woof, the fabrics, how it's made, the countries, who ships what and where and why, which trade deals and all that. And I'm downtown LA, and I'm trying to make a gi in America because it's 2011 and American pride is starting to come back. People are pissed off that we've sent everything overseas. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm going to be the first guy who makes an American gi. I go in this one spot, and this old Italian guy, he goes, you were here a month ago. And I'm like, no. And he goes, oh, that was last year. Yes, you were. These guys, I'd seen this uniform. And he's holding up, I seen a guy. And I'm like, really? So someone else? And then somehow through this other guy, I found out about Origin. And I got his number. And I called him. And what he did, which was what ultimately I realized, if I want to make American-made gis, I would do as well. We chatted for around a half an hour, is that he bought all the machines, bought a warehouse, and opened up his own shop. Because what I found out is trying to get other people to make this seemingly simple fucking thing in America was like pulling fucking teeth. And I remember chewing this lady out that I paid $1,000 to come up with patterns. I left her a sample of an A1, an A2, A3, A4. Just fucking make a pattern of this. Just fucking source this thing. Oh, but it was hard because the stitch quality and our needle isn't long enough. And I'm like, this is why fucking China's kicking our ass. Because if they don't know how to make it, they will fucking lie and then figure it out. Your job is to figure it out. I'm paying you to fucking make this gi. This is why America is losing. And I left out of there infuriated. You can make a wedding dress, but you can't make a gi. You can make jeans with zippers and buttons, but you can't make drawstring fucking pants. Like, what is your fucking problem? Well, it's white and contamination because I don't care if there's dirt on the fucking gi. Just make the fucking gi. And I realized why Origin did it. Because, like, you can't find somebody who will make your fucking gi. Except a place that made military gear. So that was where my friend Rob convinced Vince from Show Your Roll, who Rob got Vince the connections to the Japanese streetwear brands, and the quid pro quo was you got to make my coach Chris Haueter's magic kimono. because I was obsessed and wanted an American-made gi. So through a collaboration with Show Your Roll, I got our first American-made brand. And
But it
cost
costs
$300.
so much. But it costs so much to make.
Yes.
Just to make.
Because they aren't making
Per
$1
unit.
an hour. Because in Pakistan, it's people making $1 an hour, so they're making soccer balls and gis instead of fucking bomb vests and clacking off at the embassy.
We got that part.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was
That's a lot
what
of stuff.
happened
That's a
then.
story.
I'm interested too in, we also had like a special thing about the drawstring that we were
I did a
working
patent.
on.
Yes, I hired a patent lawyer and all this. Because, so, maybe we'll show this on the screen. But the patent. The 1,000-year-old drawstring pant, which a bunch of people were trying to re-engineer, make it a belt and a sap. It's like, that thing works awesome. And really, you only need the front loop because you're supposed to do the first knot over the front loop and then tie if you're doing it the classical the Japanese way. And then people would add the extra things, and then your string gets lost in the pants, and you need a coat hanger or a pen cap to re-thread.
That's super annoying.
So my engineered gi, not only, and the loop in the back where there's 2 strings running through, that string starts to loop around the other string, and then you pull it and it only pulls one side and it gets knotted. So by putting a little stitch where they enter down, it prevents that loop from ever crossing over. And then doing a sleeved, rather than one of these kind of loops, an actual hollow sleeve, then you put a knot and the string won't pull through that knot. So that was what I thought. I was brilliant, I thought. I figured it out. I've improved upon a 1,000-year-old thing. We don't need 19 fucking flaps. We just need this little stitch, a big knot, and the thing. The other thing is the kind of spongy bungee cord, I don't think is as good as the folded cotton that doesn't stretch. I think that because if you can pull it tight enough and it won't slip through, and you have a correct knot, which is one overhand and a half loop, then you're good. But with that spongy shit, it comes undone all the fucking time, and it's stretchy and all that. So I'm not a fan of the round stretchy thing, but it's cheaper because it comes in giant looms rather than having to be sewn. So I said, all right, fine, use the round cord. Because my pant patent, it'll still not go through. But
There's a lot that goes into it. Back to the origin stuff. The
boy,
other
I can rant.
interesting thing about the origin operation is that they're in an area of Maine
Yes.
that used to be a textile industry,
Yes.
and a lot of the there's like huge buildings in Maine that were textile loom places where they would make textiles
That were shut down in the
Like
90s.
here too, though, right?
Here too.
Here too. in
But
LA.
now they're just like abandoned buildings in the
Yeah.
woods.
Yes.
Here too.
And
Here too. LA, New York used to be the jean capital of the world. And there's still a lot of jeans, like high brands, made in LA and New York. Not as much anymore, but that whole area of Maine made all kinds of, the whole Rust Belt
yeah.
is pretty much the story from 1980 to 2000, where American manufacturing went overseas.
Yeah.
And that was everything from washing machines, radios, telephones, garment, even printing went overseas.
The crazy thing is, I lived in Maine for a while, and it has so much poverty. Like, it's a really rural area. The main economy, I think, is like tourism at this point.
Yeah.
So, like,
Let the jobs go out and the fentanyl comes in.
that's what it kind of felt like living there. And it almost seems like I don't understand why you wouldn't want to keep some, I don't know, the jobs there.
Because if you're a guy on Wall Street and you're a corporate raider and you can get Chinese, Mexicans, or whoever to get paid $1 an hour without a union, you get to reap all the profit.
Yeah.
Nike was one of the first ones that was catching a lot of shit when they closed a bunch of their U.S. manufacturing and promised for the consumer it would be cheaper.
Yeah.
Is it any cheaper? No. Nike still charges the same ridiculous amount and then makes billions
more profit.
extra.
Yeah.
Billions
it's all about
extra.
money. That's why. They
Yes.
don't care about the people having to work. They
Well,
just want
Wall
to make
Street
bigger
does not have
profits.
Main Street's interest in mind.
Yeah.
The guy who does is the union boss. And whether
Well,
you're pro-union or
Let's
not,
get too political.
he's the guy who does. And
Yeah.
sometimes he gets into his own interest
Yeah.
and sells out the union.
Yeah.
Or the mafia gets a hold of him, which is so the whole history of unions, especially in the East Coast, has both a good part and a bad part.
Mm-hmm.
And we can also say that we did eventually end up making a gi with Origin.
Yeah, it was
because
sick.
Origin
It's a badass gi.
decided
I like it.
that they would make gis for people.
Because they need to make more money.
Yeah, so they
I like
make
the
gis
Origin gi.
with, if you wanted to have a gi with your gym's name put on it, you could contact Origin and they would make up a small run for you. And we have Combat Based by Origin gis available on our website.
Yeah.
You could get a discount using the code podcast10.
And I've been there.
Podcast 10.
And they
10% off.
Yes, yes.
and they loom their own fabric.
Yeah.
They loom the pearl weave. I was there at the factory watching them loom the pearl weave, the wart and the woof, and the machine goes clong, 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 and
that
pumps out a high quality pearl weave, which I don't know if that's an actual technical term or a fashion term, but yeah,
They make cool boots too.
Then they make awesome
They make
boots.
really nice boots.
They
Origin.
sent me an awesome pair of boots that fit awesome, all leather,
You should wear those more
Vibram
often.
soles.
I like those shoes.
I wear them. They're kind of my nice shoe.
Okay. You should wear them to the wedding we go to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of the cool things is when
I
you
love
go.
my Origin boots. I love Origin. Shout out to Origin.
One of the cool things, if you're in Maine, is there's all these abandoned factories, and a lot of them they left the equipment. And my understanding is that the Origin guys went and like rescued those old
did.
looms because
Yes.
they don't make those anymore.
They don't make them anymore.
So they're like antiques that have been restored.
Yeah.
And then the other kicker is that there's only a few people left that know how to operate those
That's right.
things. So like they went and
hired them?
found those guys. I
One
don't
of
think they
them-
hired them, but
Consulting.
consulted
Yeah,
with them
hired
and
them, consult.
taught people how to like use these old machines.
One of the main
That's cool.
guys at Origin, him and I talked. He was trained by an old guy, and he handles the maintenance of all the machines there,
Yeah.
and understands. And there's like in the States, like maybe 5 of him. In China, there's a bunch of them, but over here, there's like 5, which is why what got me paranoid in like 2010 is I started having my Gen X childhood dreams that, oh fuck, World War III's like coming soon. And if we're not making shit here, once the economy shuts down, if you're not making uniforms, beans, bullets, you're fucked. So I started deep diving and found out actually America is quite self-contained. We have 2 oceans. There's reasons why Russia requires expansion and needs warm water ports. There's reasons why in World War III China would be fucked. But like these are whole deep topics where guys have PhDs and still barely catch the geography of it. And those of you who frequently YouTube, Peter Zihan is fucking awesome. Ryan McBeth is awesome. And they'll go over the geopolitical strategy based on history, population graphics, manufacturing, economies, GDP, and tell you why this country is doing what, even if they can't consciously express why they're doing it, there's reasons why people move like packs of herd animals moving around, and that's kind of what humans do.
And if that doesn't work, you can always become a prepper.
You can, but
You
if
can get a bunker under your garage.
yes, if we had a limited nuclear war, which those of you, I suggest read Annie Jacobson or hear one of her lectures on a podcast or interviews. There's like basically 3 scales of the war. There's limited tactical nuclear war, and then of course the top, global strategical nuclear war. If that happens, the Earth is done.
Mutually assured destruction.
Mutual
Let's
assured
not talk about that
destruction.
right now.
Uh,
Tobin, what else you got?
So that's why I say, what could be more important? Let's talk about geese.
yeah, I know, right? So this is a great spot to transition over to the style of your gi.
Yep.
So
I
back
want
in
a
the day-
mushroom cloud on the back of my gi.
Back in the day, there weren't stylized gis, right? But then somebody started putting crazy stuff all over their gis.
So
What's up with that?
when I was a black belt, and this was recommended by Chance, who's now a black belt in Singapore and has a school.
Chance Wanlas?
Chance Wanless. There was this punk rock shop in Hermosa Beach, and they had minor threat patches, black flag patches, and I had a gi, and I'm like, God, I want to put black flag on there, minor threat. I'm going to bleach my hair white. And I had a gi, and I had an ace of spades, a patch on the sleeve. That was really cool. It was an ace of spades patch, and I had a skull on that. And then Ryan and Scotty of OTM saw that's such a cool gi, and it's so American. It just screams West Coast punk American. And they created, and I feel like I partially inspired it, the Lucky Gi, which was the first true Americana American gi.
Not made in America.
Not made in America.
The style,
and
though.
Scotty literally flew to Pakistan. Koresh, what's it called again? I can't remember the fucking name of it. And had a harrowing experience of finding the guy and basically training him to make the gis.
Oh, wow.
So Scotty from OTM is the first guy who really got Pakistan manufacturing up. And about 10 years ago, there was basically, and still there's about 3 main manufacturing factories over there that make 90% of all the Pakistan origin gis. So when Show Your Roll sells you this exclusive product being made right next to it, sometimes in the same run, is some other brand.
Yeah.
But it's so weird because I get contacted
Now you
frequently
get 'em
from
all the time.
so many different companies
Yes.
out of Pakistan that want to make our
Hi,
gear.
sir / ma'am. We manufacture
They always say
martial
hi,
arts, kimonos, uniforms.
And it says
gis,
like show your roll.
Chris,
It'll
boxing
say,
gloves,
There's-
like Show Your Roll.
There's
Yeah.
no / ma'am, by the way.
Oh,
They're
that's the
contacting
Chinese.
me
Sir.
and they
Do that.
always say, hi, sir.
Oh,
We'd
that's
like
funny.
to make your gi.
Wait,
blah,
so
blah, whatever.
the Americana style Lucky Gi, like you see the
It
old,
was the coolest gi.
you see
bar none.
the old school matches where the guys look like they're in a NASCAR race, all this
Yes.
stuff. Was that happening before the Lucky Gi stuff?
Yes. Well, kind of just before. So I'm not going to say I was the first, but I was amongst the first guys who started to put our own patches on the gi.
Okay.
Not just your school patch, but a black flag and an ace of spades. And then, because there was no money in the sport, Matt Hall and a couple other guys ran around and got local restaurants, tire companies, whatever, to put their patch on your gi and sponsor your entrance fee. So there's this brief phase where there was a little bit, and then all of a sudden, one guy would go out and get 10 sponsors and have sponsor patches all over.
Yeah.
And then other guys, hey, it just looks cool, so I'm going to go put on all the things I think are cool on mine.
And then they had to
They
regulate
had to
that.
regulate it because you could tactically put the patch where the grip area is,
That's twice as thick.
or
over there.
right on the lapel, right where you can't get that lapel, because then it slips on the patch and you go, oh, these fuckers are cheating again. Because where there is no regulation, people will do what they can to win within the confines of not being caught.
Yeah.
When there's no punishment, there will be cheating.
Yeah.
Introduce law and order.
Interesting.
The philosophy of law and order and ethics.
Do you have the lucky gi?
I do not anymore.
I used to have a black
What happened to
one.
it?
I wore it out.
And threw it out? Wore it out and threw it out?
I had a bunch. There was a period where I was loosely sponsored by them. Ryan or Scotty would give me lucky geese. They did have one really bad batch once where
They were
they
running
felt like
small,
cardboard.
and they were hard. I had one of those.
They lied in Pakistan and promised it was pre-shrunk, and it wasn't. And they, by the fifth wash, an A3 was an A1.
Oh, no.
So
Yeah.
someone gave me theirs.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to do a remake of that original lucky gi.
I think Scotty is planning on pumping out another run. I'm going to shoot him a text.
It'd be cool to have him on the podcast.
We
It'd be
could
a
get
cool
Scotty on the
historical
podcast.
story.
He's
stories
doing really
about making
cool
geese.
stuff. He's like down in
With
Mexico.
the
Stem cell.
Maybe we could
yeah.
do like a geese
If I had an
#2
extra
with
20
Scotty.
grand, I would be down getting stem
Geese
cells.
and stem cells.
Yeah.
Geese/stem cells.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
All right. What else more do we need to say about geese? I feel like
The colors. So,
yeah.
Machados were the first
Oh, yeah,
ones
yeah.
inspired by competing in Sambo
Mm-hmm.
to wear blue geese.
Ooh, blue.
Blue was like avant-garde.
Doesn't Sambo wear like blue and
Red,
pink?
blue and red.
It looks
I was
like
gonna
pink.
ask
It's like
John
salmon.
Well,
Okay.
after it's washed a bunch of times, because
It's like a pinky color.
Gene LaBelle notoriously wore for his old
Pink
age,
gi.
the last 20 years, a pink gi.
Yeah.
And what he says happened was he washed something red with his white gi and never got the pink out, the cat in the hat. And so he forever had a pink gi. And then he was known as the guy who's this tough guy who breaks people's wrists, who wears a pink gi. But Gene was a super cool guy, but he was one of those guys. I was advised back before jiu-jitsu when I was a JKD guy and some Larry Hartzell grappling thing, that if Gene ever says you be his uke, avoid it.
Yeah.
And don't roll with Gene LaBelle.
Gnarly.
He'll break something.
Gnarly.
Yep.
I got to meet him before he died.
There's that very catch wrestling brutal style of judo.
I got to meet him before he passed away.
Bukozen judo.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, I was at an MMA fight. Dylan's older brother, Chris, was fighting MMA, professional MMA, at age 50, had his first fight.
That's insane.
And we were at the fight.
Inspirational, but insane.
We were at the fight, and Dylan and I are walking, and we hear from behind us, Bruno! I turn around, it's Gene LaBelle, and I guess him and Dylan are old buddies from movies or something like that.
Oh, yeah, they probably
super
are
cool.
old
Yeah.
movie buddies, yep.
Yeah, super cool. I got to talk to him for a little bit.
But Gene was a cool guy.
Legend.
Very cool. Very fascinating history. That like dovetails with the mafia and all kinds of other
Oh, crazy.
just weird connections of other cultures that blend in with it.
So the colors, though. So they did the Sambo colors. And then
They
why
s-
do they... Jean-Jacques wears the red gi.
Now he wears red. But
There's a long time later, right?
yes,
You started wearing red.
that was way later. And like me personally, red is my least complimentary color because I have pink fucking skin.
Me too.
And
tough.
I hated
It's tough.
that like the 1999 Machado team shirt was fucking red.
You know what's good for us,
God,
though?
don't do red.
You probably wouldn't pull this off, but I can wear pink. And it's so pink that it makes me look less pink.
Oh,
And it
I'll
actually
have
looks
to
good.
try it.
Pink's good.
I'll
Hot
have
pink's
to
good
try
for
it.
pink guys.
Hot pink or just pink?
Well, I'm not
Like
going to
a-
wear regular pink. It's got to be hot pink.
Oh, hot pink?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what you
Neon pink,
wear.
electric
Neon
yeah,
pink?
like an 80s pink.
Oh,
you
gotta
okay.
go hot pink.
Yep, hot pink.
I
Yep.
don't know about for a gi, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, not for a gi.
And then there,
Start with a shirt.
mid 90s, late 90s, a lot of guys were taking their gis and tie dyeing them with the hippie gi look,
Oh, cool.
which like, I mean, that's kind of cool. And then like the current like major label brands out there, like Show Your Roll, which does limited runs of the gi, which is smart. Like Lucky Gi was who inspired Show Your Roll. And it's oftentimes that the guy who's first has to do all the research, absorb all the hits, take all the shit, fuck up a bunch of times, and the guy who's second gets to run to the bank. And that's the story of Show Your Roll. Not that they don't make a good product, they do.
They make
cool
gis
stuff.
in every single color.
They do cool stuff.
And
But I prefer Vanguard.
I do
100%. Nicest gi I've ever worn.
I love my
Hands down.
Vanguard kimonos, and it's all I wear.
And I will say, as a guy who basically says, I'll wear whatever gi you want to hand me, Vanguards do seem to fit nicer.
Yeah.
The angling of it, they have Chinese stitch quality, Pakistani cotton quality. They have the weaves are not so tight that they tear and not so loose that they feel cheap. And Vanguard is an awesome gi.
And to
I don't
me-
like the tote bag, but I love the gi.
But to me, it has just the right amount of art and diversity. Like a Show Your Roll, you got pastel, every color, this and that. It's like, it's not that much, but it has just the right amount.
It's a little more refined.
A little more refined, a little
refined and
more
classy.
sophisticated.
It's a little more, yeah.
It's classier.
The
for sure.
craziest thing
Love
that
it.
blew my mind about the Vanguard is I put it on, and you know when you put on a regular old gi, the bottoms of the skirt on the gi top end up like going in an X.
Yeah.
Then you have these two things like poking down,
And it hangs wrong.
and it hangs weird. You put the Vanguard on, and the skirt stays level, both of them somehow. Even when you don't have your belt tied,
It just
sits
hangs
there.
perfect.
It
Yep.
hangs perfect, and things are like level up front. So there's
Yes.
not this like situation where you're always trying to straighten it up.
And I feel like it comes untied way less than any gi that I've
Yeah.
ever worn.
I mean, it's hands down the nicest.
Yeah,
Hands down the
it's
nicest
very,
gi I've
very
ever
good.
worn.
Yep,
quality.
hands down. And Origin, I will say, are really strong
They feel
because
super durable.
they're not all cotton. It's a blend that makes that, like, if I want a tear-proof gi, I'm wearing an Origin,
Yeah, it's a good call.
especially pant-wise.
Yeah.
I prefer the Vanguard's patterning and cut
And fit, yes.
and fit, but I definitely prefer Origin's origin story and material quality. Durability.
Yeah, that one that you guys made with Origin, it's a super lightweight gi, which is nice.
Yeah.
But it feels so strong. It's
It
like
is
insane.
stronger,
I
yeah.
feel like you could like pick up a car with it.
Yeah,
It's so
it is
strong.
super duper strong. And I do think, though, I just will say the last thing, that my Magic Kimono run made in U.S., where I did olive drab and tan, where I sourced and found vintage American-made new old stock from U.S. government canvas. So it's proper U.S. military green, made in America, materials, like it was stock that was like left over from the Vietnam War, and I had those gis made, and
That's
I
insane.
think they're the coolest gi in the world, particular in not just because I brag about my own artwork and the design, but my owner's manual is fucking awesome in that gi.
Hell yeah.
It would be cool to do something like that again, but find out how to do it for less expensive, and to, encourage people who are in the military to have those gis.
Yes,
It'd be
it
insane.
would.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool.
And that's
Like
a
the
whole world.
military gi.
I would
I'm
love
not trying to
do
give
that.
somebody else a great idea.
No, I so back when I was dreaming of becoming an American gi maker, I did picture the Marine Corps and Army getting a contract, and like there was a period of time for about 4.5 years where I put a lot of energy in it. And what made me realize, like I went on my rant, why you can't make fucking anything in America anymore unless you do everything your goddamn self. Like I have to sit there and teach a fucking seamstress your fucking job. It was infuriating. It was truly one of the most infuriating experiences. Being in a place, watching people making jeans, and having the lead person and the owner go, I don't know, this looks complicated. You're like, the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I could imagine.
What the fuck are you talking about? And okay, we can, but what's your MOQ, minimum quantity? And it's like, can we do like 200? 2,000 minimum.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
crazy.
I'd have to go to the next place, you know? And
Maybe the Pakistani people were
well, the
paying them
Pakistani
off.
will make you 5. They'll make you 5.
But they don't want the LA people to make them.
They don't.
I think it's one of those things where you can do anything with your life, but you can't do everything, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a big endeavor to go on that journey.
You go but down a town LA and you'll see painted on a lot of those buildings and Jack
Yeah,
and the Chinese characters
it's crazy.
where they bought those buildings to kill LA
Business. That's
garment
insane.
industry.
That's insane.
Put locks on the doors and took the machines and moved them to China.
Well, I think we should figure out a way to get, even if somebody just does for the garage, you know, take a gi that's plain and put all the Lucky Gi patches from your OG Lucky Gi. That'd be cool.
Well, here's what's coming.
Oh.
With AI, modern computing, modern machining, 3D printing and all that, it won't be long to where your phone will scan your body, will have everything exact, and you will get custom one-offs where you could drag and drop the image,
That'd be cool.
see what it looks like on you from all angles, and that's where a clothing is going.
Yeah.
But it'll probably cost a fortune at first.
Definitely at first.
So we won't have any of that.
We won't. Maybe our kids.
Because I'm a Target shopper. What else you got, Tobin?
Well, there we go.
I wear cool pants, KUHL. It's the only pant I wear because of the foam body.
KUHL.
Cool.
Cool.
Please ship me a pair of pants for giving you a shout out.
Or 10.
Well, there we go. So we figured out, or at least talked about what's going on with the gis. I think we kind of hit it up. I think,
What about no-gi?
yeah, that's a whole nother.
another
That's a
day.
whole nother
It's
day.
a whole other day. Okay.
It's kind of funny because one of our callers actually is from Maine and talks about nogi.
Let's hear it.
In the,
Let's
in
hear
the
it.
call. So let's get to some cues. Remember, guys, podcast@combatbase.com. If you want to send in an email cue, we got a hotline, 949-791-7763. You can call, leave a rant, leave a question. Those are the most fun, for sure. You can also text that same number to leave a question or a rant. We actually got some text messages too, which is cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, for
Yeah.
all your support, questions, and
Yeah,
rants.
super fun. So we got kind of a crazy hotline hit.
Let's hear it.
Let's hear this. All right. Let me find it in here. All right, you guys ready?
So
Got
ready?
a caller on the line.
Hey, Combat Base, how y'all doing tonight? Well, I just wanted to call in. I love the show. I wanted to give you guys a little backstory on my journey to jiu-jitsu. Maybe I could get into the show someday as a guest. But my name's Chris also. I'm from northern Maine. My friend's so funny. My friends call me Chris Chowder because I'm from New England, and I think they think that's all we eat. And anyway, my name's Chris Chowder, and maybe we have an ancestor, share a grandpa or something. Anyway, I discovered jiu-jitsu out here. I got caught and had to do some prison time. And when I was in prison, we were doing, I got introduced to a Brazilian guy, and his name was Paulo, and he was teaching jiu-jitsu to some of us, and of course they didn't allow us to do jiu-jitsu formally, so we did no gi. You know, no gi is a lot different than with a gi, because you got, you know, your stuff's all hanging out. You know, they can grab your wiener and you know, not arm bar it, but they can use it against you, you know, and things can get pretty weird really quick. And in the first few weeks, there's some pretty aggressive dudes. I ended up breaking my toe and losing my toe due to just the poor medical situation there. Some of the guys in this sort of underground shower no gi class started calling me Toe, and yeah, so Toe. Yeah, and it's pretty hard. I mean, we don't give out belts, so I don't even know how the belt system really works. I got out about 6 months ago, and I'm, looking for a gym. I guess you guys have a cool backyard scene. Maybe I can kind of come to the. Maybe I could come train with you. You guys. I don't necessarily want to teach you guys no gi, but we could try it if you guys all want. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, no gi is pretty wild, right? I mean, I don't know how it is on the outside. I see signs for no gi classes, and I started listening to your podcast. Think street, train for sport, and pray or whatever. And I think if you got into this no gi style, you got to also think like shower, like think shower. Especially if you're facing any kind of time in prison. But yeah, I think maybe we could start some classes in your backyard for like Chris Chaueter and Chris Haueter, no gi, kind of like prison, like kind of like shower tune-up kind of thing, if that, I think that other lady on your show, Marissa, maybe she could have a girls kind of like no gi, kind of like prison. I don't even know what that would look like. But this is an area of the sport, I think, it's growing in demand. From the self-defense aspect of it is definitely relevant. So anyway, great show, I just think. I guess I have similar names to you guys, Toe Woody and Chris Chaueter. And Marissa, no one calls me that yet. So anyway, love the show. Keep it up, guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
Chris Chaueter.
Wow, Chowder.
Chris Chaueter, what's
Chris
up,
Chaueter.
dude?
Chris Chaueter, come on in and we'll do some nogi.
Hell
Some
yeah.
naked nogi?
Yeah.
Dude, Chris Chaueter. What about that? Training in prison. These guys are in there?
That's a whole other show.
That's a whole other show.
People
Prison
do
training.
actually,
They do.
well, they don't, I wouldn't say they train in prison. They use jiu-jitsu in prison. Yes.
Like,
It in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, when the VHS era came, almost every cop would watch this highlight reel of inmates training what to do when the cop is trying to handcuff you, the back elbow, and
No way.
like all the escape stuff. So yeah, there is a criminal-based martial arts style, obviously very rare and all that, but when you're a young cop, every young cop sees that and goes, oh shit. And then of course when the jiu-jitsu started to get popular, then cops were wondering how to deal with it, and that's when police departments and LAPD would have a martial arts advisory panel, and yeah, that's a whole other show.
Chris Chaueter could become like
That's a whole other show.
the guy that goes
That
around and
instructs
teaches the cops how
Prison
to
jiu-jitsu.
do prison jiu-jitsu. I also, one other thing that made me think of was like, he's talking about no-gi and dudes grabbing your wiener. And I mean, obviously you don't want to be thinking about that kind of stuff when you're training, but I do notice like when I watch some of your old school like jiu-jitsu stuff,
Vintage VHS jiu-jitsu.
you taught your think street kind of includes like groin strikes
Yes.
and
A
like
lot,
eye
yeah,
gouges and
he
stuff,
says
and I never
They
hear
can
that
grab
ever.
you in the groin.
No one
He
ever
says
talks
that a
about
lot.
groin. It's
No,
the only
not-
time you hear about groin and eye gouging is like for jokes, right?
Yep.
But it's a real thing, right?
It's in
It's
the
part of the deal.
street.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. Not so much an honor code duel fight.
Right.
But for true self-defense, yeah.
Do
it's a thing.
you think, and when I watch those sometimes, because I didn't know you then when you were teaching the way you taught when you made your VHS tapes, I was thinking, was it because you were closer to like your JKD days that you were more like, because you do
Probably.
say think street, but then you were very, like everything was really like your t-shirt chokes and
Yeah.
a lot about groin grab,
Yeah.
like you say. Was it
Yeah,
that, or was it because jiu-jitsu was much more self-defense oriented at the time? Or
it was because the self-defense part was soft. The MMA was not as, there weren't as many rules yet. And the art part was finesse. And it was me trying to work it all out then. And because I'm a new black belt, I'm remembering the original reason why I wanted to learn, which is, I hate calling it self-defense, because I think unless you're, for most men, self-defense is bullshit.
He was going to say, unless you're a woman or a child.
I was gonna. But, like most athletic men don't have to get in self-defense altercations. What they're in is piss-offs and street fights.
For fighting.
For fighting.
For real-world application.
Real-world
What if we
application.
said that?
And
maybe a woman wants to do real-world application.
Maybe a woman does.
Maybe a child does.
Maybe a child does. And maybe we should teach our kids to kick people in the groin and gouge their eyes out. But in the classical martial arts world, and before sport with jiu-jitsu blew up, all martial arts would tell you at least that this was for the real thing, real fights.
Yeah.
That boxing and wrestling, that's just a sport.
Yeah.
What we do is real.
Yeah.
And our moves will kill you or debilitate you.
Yeah.
We don't wear boxing gloves. We use our bare hands. And it was kind of like that was the energy that was coming from martial arts until jiu-jitsu changed the world.
All right.
Changed that world.
I like that call-in. Chris Chaueter.
Thanks,
Chris
Chris
Chaueter.
Chaueter. Thanks, Chris Woody. Chaueter.
Do we have time to do some more? How are we doing? Are you good for a little more? Yeah? A few more minutes?
If you want, we could always spare it for another show.
All right, let's just hit this one cue that came in
All
an
right.
email real quick, and then we'll do the other couple more call-ins on another show. I lost my notes here. So this was an email inquiry that came through, sorry guys. I got thrown off a little bit by Chris Chaueter. All right. So, will you describe your first formal jiu-jitsu class? Do you remember the first move you taught, your feelings, your mindset, first roll, etc.? Mine was in 94. I put my gi pants on backwards, tied my belt wrong, learned the clock choke, and got absolutely wrecked by a girl half my size. I instantly fell in love with jiu-jitsu. Thanks, Jim.
That's cool.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jim.
Do you remember your first class?
I remember my introduction to jiu-jitsu, and I think I've told that story
With Mitz
before.
Yamashita?
Yeah,
With Mitch.
it's
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of a
First
long
time.
one.
But
You
your
ever
first
did?
actual class. that
I
you took.
remember my first actual class was with Hoyce Gracie in the little back room of Horian's Garage on Red Beam Avenue.
Okay. And yours was
And
with
it was
Chris.
a private. Okay, so I don't know. I mean, if it was an actual class, I was wearing jeans. He showed me an armbar in the front garage. Does that count as a class? I don't remember my first actual class,
I don't remember
where
mine.
I went to an
Right.
academy
I
and
don't
trained.
remember. Yeah, either.
I remember learning some stuff from my friend's brother when I was about 19, and then meeting Chris and having him show me something in the garage, show me guard armbar in the garage.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm absolutely sure that my first formal class would have been going to one of the places that Chris was teaching at the time. So it was either
Yep.
South Bay Jiu-Jitsu
Or that karate school.
or there was a ninjitsu school
Yep.
that we were training at. So I think I just started going with him, but I have no recollection of the very first time I trained at a martial arts studio.
Yeah, I don't really
Brain
remember
damage.
mine either.
It's
I
called
just
brain
remember
damage.
getting wrecked during
Yeah.
rolling. I just remember rolling with these like brown belt, purple belt guys, and they're just smoking me. Like I was just getting so ragdolled and so fucking beat up. It was like insane. It's like being in
Yeah.
a washing machine.
I remember that for a couple years, but
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, let's wrap up this show. That was interesting. That was a good show. I think the gi stuff's cool, and yeah, I just would encourage people to hit the hotline with whatever you got.
hit it up.
Chris Chaueter hit it up and gave us 4 minutes of amazing stuff to think about. So hit up the hotline. Did you want to shout out UACTP real quick, and then we'll close up the show?
Whoa. All right. So we are going to give a gym shout out to UACTP this time in Los Angeles, California, where Chris teaches twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. You can discover the ultimate destination for martial arts enthusiasts. People like using that word, enthusiasts. It's your premier choice for Los Angeles jiu-jitsu training, nestled in the heart of Los Angeles. It's not just a martial arts academy, it's a community where discipline meets diversity, offering a wide range of classes, including boxing, Muay Thai, gi and no gi, Kali, and Salat. They cater to practitioners of all levels. Their unique open mats welcome students from other academies as well, fostering a spirit of unity and growth. You can elevate your training with their specialized strength and conditioning classes designed to optimize your performance. And this is where champions are made and bonds are forged. Chris, what do you say about UACTP?
Come on down. Come to one of my classes. It's a beautiful gym.
Really nice showers.
Really nice
like
showers
the soap
and
in
towels.
the showers
Yep.
Towel
and
service.
the towel service.
Yep.
You can't say that about, I think that's probably the only place I've been where the shower is really pretty, the soap smells good, and there's towel service.
Yeah.
It's nice.
I love going there. I try to go there every other week, and
And
it's
eat
a
tacos?
cool experience of driving through what feels like Gotham City, downtown LA, and sneaking into this hole in the wall, kind of like warehouse style thing in the middle of downtown to find the martial arts master. That
And
gives
you
the-
go inside,
the
and it's
lesson.
really nice, and you walk outside, and you're in the hood.
Yeah.
And then you can go to the
It's epic.
Salvadorian restaurant and eat tacos
And
or
they're delicious tacos.
Yeah.
steak salad with Tobin.
Yeah. All right.
And pay El Salvadorian prices instead of overcharged, fancy, gourmet American prices. And the food's
Salvadorian.
Yeah. All right. Well,
better.
that's it for today.
Contrast.
Pound, like, and subscribe.